Hey y'all, this is Amazon Jude coming to you from Wyoming, and today's date is February 8th, 2019. I just spent all morning from 9:30 this morning till just now watching the Oversight Committee. I thought it was a courtroom. Or, no, I guess it's an Oversight Committee, huh? I guess that's where you're supposed to ask what the Department of Justice is doing on security, immigration, ICE, on illegal aliens, on filings of current court cases against drug dealers and human traffickers and that kind of stuff. Well, that's not what they did. Jerry Nadler is now the chairman of this committee, Judicial Oversight Committee, right? I was so proud of Mr. Whitaker. You handled them very good. Because these guys, they weren't in there to ask you questions about your job. Hell, you're gone in a week from it. Or at least that position, and maybe on to something better. We got a lot of hope pinned on this Barr guy. And if he turns out to be like Mueller and them fuckers, we're going to be some pissed off people out here. So he better do his job, because we're watching now. We haven't watched our government in a very, very long time, and it's cost us dearly. It damn near cost us the United States. We damn near turned to socialist. If Hillary Clinton had won, we would have lost it all. It was over with. Game over. Thank God the military and God intervened and got us a decent president. But anyway, this Oversight Committee, I couldn't help but laugh my ass off at some of this stuff. These women are fucking nuts. They're nuts. If my woman, and I'm a woman, if my woman got into my face like they got into his face, they'd be at the hospital because I'd have to bust their fucking nose. You want to treat me like a dog? I'm going to treat you like a dog. You know? And some of them were like J. Paul and Powell and this little beaner from down on the border in Texas. EXE started with her last name. I couldn't make it out on the video. But she was sitting there going, well, why aren't we sending lawyers and judges or lawyers down there to help these people? Can't they put their foot on the American soil? No, they can't. You don't like the law? Change it. Otherwise, pound sand up your ass, bitch. I mean, every one of those women on the Democrat side, if they were in Wyoming and broke down on the side of the road and it was 40 below zero and I had a bucket of water, I would throw it on them so they would freeze to death in the snow, because they are fucking useless. They are Nancy Pelosi's hit soldiers. I like to call them demon in high heels, because that's what they are. They have no class. They're all ass. They don't even do their own research. Well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to go look at the website. If you're going to ask the question about something, then you need to do the research on it, bitch. That's what you're getting paid for. Right? I do more research than my fucking Congress bitches on the Democrat side. I probably know more than the bitches on the Democrat side know. You know why? Because I research. I don't just sit on my ass in my office all day long doing my hairs and nails and figuring out what designer Vera Wayne's going to build me for a suit, a white suit to wear to Congress. Do you know the Democrats were the party of the KKK? And those stupid women wore those suits, black and white women wore those stupid suits. And then poor, not that I like Kirsten Sinema. I don't know what she was doing in Mexico with Pelosi, meeting with El Chapo, the drug dealer that's on trial up in New York right now. But Beto O'Rourke was there too in 2013. Kind of weird, huh? Maybe somebody should look into that a little bit. To me, you know what that said? Payoff. And I think that's why the Democrats don't want the border. They don't want the border secure, because they got their fingers in that pie. They got their fingers in the pie of the human trafficking, child sex trade, drug cartel, gun running, you name it, because it's lucrative money. Think about it. Nancy Pelosi's fabric district. They do more money laundering for the cartel than anywhere else in the country besides New York, Chuck Schumer's districts. Go figure that out. Anyway, so I'm watching this oversight committee, and I'm listening to this stuff, and I'm getting more pissed off by the minute. I'm going, these fucking women are so stupid. They act like there's something special. And you know what? I eat women like that for lunch. I've been a biker for 35 years, and if some bitch talked to me the way those bitches talk to Whitaker, they'd have been picking their fucking teeth up off the ground. Because if you want respect, you better give respect, and you better fucking respect me, or I'm not going to respect you, and I don't give a fuck what collar you have on you. I don't care if you're a United States Senator or the goddamn President of the United States. You treat me like shit, I'm going to treat you like shit. So I give Whitaker a big hooray for that. He took a lot of shit off them stupid cunts. And then he took a lot of shit off of them stupid fucking guys, too. What's his name? C-I-C-C-O, Cicero? The little Italian fucking spick from up in New York. Motherfucker, he gets his nails done every 2 days. He's a bitch. He's a bitch. He ain't been a man in fucking 10 years. And then you got, what was his name? Kanye's, the colored guy from Georgia that talks like a preacher. He once said, and I shit you not, if we put too many military men on one side of the island's going to flip over. That's how fucking intelligent he is. You see this rock? It has more brains than that boy does. That's the problem with Congress. And that's what the Democrats have done for years. They make you afraid to run for office because they're going to do what they did to Whitaker today, do what they did to Kristen, Homeland Security, do what they tried to do to Gina Haskell, but she handled herself. She knows bitches when she sees them. Do what they did to Jeff Sessions. Recuse yourself. Fuck you. Recuse myself for what? I know what you did. I'm not going to recuse myself from anything. I'm going to bust you for doing it. So I hope Q is right that we're looking for a bunch of indictments coming down. And I hope it's half of fucking Congress because I know the Democrats are fucking dirty. And Adam Schiff, there's another one. Check out his Ukraine connections. That motherfucker's up to it his eyeballs. So was John McCain, too. And when John died, Lindsey Graham found his voice again. Because that motherfucker stepped on his head all the time. And Lindsey, keep the balls on, babe. They look better on you. As far as Nadler, he doesn't know how to run a committee meeting. Grassley is sitting at home right now. Or who was in charge before? Was it Grassley? Yeah, I think so. And he's got to be going, oh my God. If this is any indication of what the Judiciary Committee is, we may as well disband it because it's useless. They tried to treat this oversight committee that should have been asking about Homeland Security policies into nothing more than an attack ad on the president, his family, and people around him. And I think it just blew one of their minds, that fucking Powell bitch, or no, the EXE something or other bitch from El Paso, Texas, blew her mind when she asked if there was any pardons that he knew of, that Whitaker knew of, and he said, yeah. And then she didn't get to ask anymore, and that's when Nadler turns around and he starts his spiel. I'll make sure I put that 2 minutes there. He became judge, jury, executioner, and called Whitaker a liar, that he was unreliable, that his testimony was bullshit, and that's the way it is. And, you know, they also entered into evidence newspaper articles from the Washington Post, the New York Times, and something else. And we all know those three, our newspapers, our media is shit. They're propagandists. They are like the bullhorns for the Democrat Party. They have never, ever done a positive story on our president, never done a positive story on our country, never did a positive story on our policies. It's all about killing Trump one way or another. Kill Trump, kill Trump. And funny, nobody fucking hated him until he ran for president.
I think within the purview of the Justice Department and within the oversight responsibilities of this committee, besides fishing expeditions trying to get the goods on this president in an apparent effort to impeach him. For example, 70,000 Americans died from drug overdoses in 2017. I'm old enough to remember back in the mid-'80s when President Ronald Reagan and his wife felt so compelled to do something about the scourge of drugs in this country that the effort to just say no began, and other efforts following that. And that was because back at that time we had 10,000 deaths a year due to drug overdoses, and we now have over 70,000 deaths. So it's gotten, unfortunately, over time, worse, not better. Most of the increase in deaths in 2017 were due to synthetic drugs, synthetic opioids, specifically like fentanyl, which accounted for a significant number of those deaths. This is clearly an epidemic, which has been declared a state of emergency nationwide by the president, and has deeply affected families in my home state of Ohio, as well as families all across this nation. What efforts and resources has or does the Justice Department intend to use to combat this growing epidemic, and what help can Congress provide to assist you in your efforts?
Congressman, I appreciate that question, and I know how Ohio has been dramatically affected by the opioid crisis. We have done a lot at the Department of Justice, and I would like to partner with this committee, and I'm sure General Barr would as well, to combat and have additional tools to combat this opioid crisis. But some of the things that we have done is we set up in 2017 the Opioid Fraud and Detection Unit, which was a way that the Justice Department could utilize data to help combat the devastating opioid crisis. We did the largest healthcare fraud takedown in June of 2018. We set up the PILL Task Force, otherwise known as the Prescription Interdiction and Litigation Task Force. In February of 2018, we set up a really innovative way called Operation SOS, which was synthetic opioid surge. General Sessions and I went down to Tampa, Florida, where we saw Manatee County had taken an AUSA and embedded them once a week into the sheriff's office in order to take every fentanyl overdose case. And they dramatically reduced the number of overdose deaths in Manatee County. And we decided to take that model and apply it to the most affected states and districts that could really make a dramatic difference in saving lives. We also,
let me just, if I could, let me stop you there. I just have a follow-up question along the same topic. And the president addressed this to a considerable degree in a State of the Union the other night. And do you have an opinion? Is there a relationship between enhancing border security, particularly at our southern border, and making at least some progress in reducing the scourge of drug addiction in this country?
Congressman, absolutely there is a connection between the drugs that are being imported through our southern border, which is a large majority of those drugs, and the opioid crisis we now face. In fact, I went to China in August as Chief of Staff for then General Sessions. He asked me to go to talk to the Chinese about what more they could do to reduce the amount of fentanyl that's being produced in China. And we had a nice dialogue with some high-level government officials. And the president, as you know, has agreed with General Xi to reduce fentanyl and eliminate fentanyl production in China. And one of the ways that China's agreed to do that was by scheduling the analogs of fentanyl. It's a very serious problem, and I know Ohio is dramatically affected.
Thank you very much. I've only got
is to Jordan. Thank the chairman. Mr. Whitaker, why did Rod Rosenstein send the memo to Bob Mueller on August 2nd, 2017 concerning the scope of the special counsel investigation?
Congressman, thank you for that question, and I know this is of a great interest to you, and I hope we can have a discussion about this today. The special counsel regulations require a scoping of the special counsel's investigation that identifies the subject and the targets of the investigation. So I am certain that it would have identified the scope of the investigation pursuant to the special counsel's.
Well, my question is not what, I'll get to that. My question is why, because it was 2.5 months after the special counsel was formed. So let's go back to the beginning document, which you told the chairman earlier you're completely briefed on the special counsel's investigation. I want to go, it's just a one-page document. Order number 3915-2017 says this, Mr. Whitaker. The special counsel is authorized to conduct the investigation, including any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation. It's pretty broad. Mm-hmm. You agree?
Yeah, and in my experience, it's consistent with other appointments of special counsels.
That's fine. I mean, I think it may be too broad, but it's as broad as you can get. One-page order, go do your investigation, and anything that arises out of it, you can investigate as well. But then 2.5 months later, we get this 3-page memo from Rod Rosenstein, Acting Attorney General, to Robert Mueller, Special Counsel. Title says, Scope of the Investigation, Definition of Authority. This is what confuses me. Because in this memo, that only Mr. Mueller, and my guess is you and Mr. Rosenstein and a few people at the Justice Department have seen, most of it's blacked out. In this memo, it says this: the following allegations were within the scope of the investigation at the time of your appointment and are within the scope of the order. Well, if that's true, why do you have to say it?
Yeah.
If you can do it all along, why do you have to put it in a memo?
Exactly.
Congressman Jordan, first of all, I was, because of General Sessions' recusal from the special counsel's investigation, I was also recused from that investigation. And so I was not.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking, you said you were fully briefed. The chairman asked you.
You're asking me why at the time Rod Rosenstein.
I'm asking you why 2.5 months after the broadest order you can have, why did Rod Rosenstein say, hey, you could do this all along, but now I'm putting it in a memo? And I'll tell you what really troubles me, Mr. Whitaker, is right after that statement, the following allegations were within the scope of the investigation at the time of your appointment and are within the scope of the order. Right after that, you know what? You know what happens? Everything's redacted. Look at this. The whole darn thing. So if you could do it all along, and you have to send a memo to them 2.5 months later, and then you redact everything after it. You know what's under the redactions, Mr. Whitaker?
I do, sir.
You do. Are there names under the redactions, Mr. Whitaker?
In my experience with investigations generally, you would not have a public document identify targets or subject matter of an investigation, especially if someone is not ultimately charged with it.
Let me frame it this way. Did Rod Rosenstein give the special counsel the authority to investigate specific Americans?
Congressman, Mr. Rosenstein, acting as the Attorney General because of Mr. Sessions' recusal, gave authorization and jurisdiction to the special counsel. And so, yes, under the special counsel regulations, that's the whole purpose of the special counsel.
So I want to make, you said yes, so there are specific names 2.5 months into the investigation that Rod Rosenstein gave the special counsel specific American names to go investigate.
Yep.
Congressman.
Better say it.
Because I mean, if that's the case, then it's, I hope you, I want to know yes or no.
As you know, this is the subject of an ongoing investigation. And I spoke to you generally about investigation.
And I'm asking you a specific, or let me ask it this way. Can you give us assurances that there are not specific names under this 70% redacted memo that that Rod Rosenstein sent to the special counsel?
Congressman Jordan, I know this is...
And you know why I'm asking this, Mr. Attorney General? Because in this country, we don't investigate people, we investigate crimes. And if there are specific American citizens' names in this redacted, and I asked Mr. Rosenstein to see this, and he got all mad and huffy with me in his office and wouldn't show it to me. But I think the American people, if this alters, changes, and names specific Americans, the scope of the investigation of the special counsel, don't you think it's appropriate for the American citizens to know the full parameters of an investigation into the guy they made President of the United States?
Congressman, let me be very specific about this, because you are right. We investigate crimes, not individuals.
That's why I'm asking the question. I would like a yes or no answer. Are there names mentioned under this redacted portion of this memo?
On that, as I mentioned before, that memo props up a confidential investigation, as is every Department of Justice.
Simple question, Mr. Whitaker. Are there names, specific American names mentioned in this redacted, 70% redacted memo that happens 2.5 months after the special counsel gets his order to start his investigation, where he was given the broadest latitude you can possibly have?
Time of the gentleman has expired. The witness may answer the question.
I would just refer the Congressman to the general practice of the Department of Justice. We investigate crimes, and not Attorney General Rosenstein said to the press when it was first reported about his discussion.
Oh, you're talking about his comments, not his comments to the press, not the ones about him wearing a wire.
I'm talking about Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein's comments to the press after it was reported that he had considered
his responses
and invoking the 25th Amendment.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but his responses then, do you think are consistent? So did you talk to him about this issue at all?
I'm not here to talk about the internal discussions that I have with the.
This is really critical. It's with all due respect, this is not an ongoing. This has nothing to do with an ongoing investigation. What it has got to do with is Mr. Rosenstein and his role as an unbiased overseer of the Mueller investigation. So it's not directly dealing with the investigation, but deals with his capacity to be unbiased. So I'm not asking whether. I'm not trying to get into the substance or even the periphery. I want to know, though, did you have a conversation with Mr. Rosenstein about his comments as reported?
Congressman, this is an important question to you, but I'm not going to answer my conversations with Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein. I believe that they are deliberative. Obviously, I'm exercising the full responsibilities of the acting Attorney General position.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I know that that answer is important to you. I know that's important to you. But the answering in a way that we as the American people can understand, that's important to us. So let's get to June 21st, 2017, where you said the truth is there was no collusion with the Russians in the Trump campaign. There was interference by the Russians into the election, but there was not collusion with the campaign. That's where the left seems to be combining these two issues. The last thing they want right now is the truth to come out. And the fact that there's not a single piece of evidence that demonstrates that the Trump campaign had any illegal or even improper relationships with the Russians. It's that simple. Do you still adhere to that statement?
Yes.
Is that still true in your mind today?
Congressman, as I mentioned before to previous questioning about my statements as a private citizen before I joined the Department of Justice, those were made based on publicly available information, and I had no inside information. I did not know the details of the investigation. I obviously know the traditions of the Department of Justice, rules and regulations, and I'm going to continue to follow those as I exercise the duty.
I remember the answers that you gave to other similar questions, but not this question here. And so that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is, as we sit here today, a year and a half later,
2 years,
has your opinion changed from what you stated June 21st, 2017? Has it changed? That's a simple question. That's not hard.
Congressman, the special counsel's investigation is an ongoing investigation, and I'm not going to characterize that investigation or give you my opinion of that investigation.
I have one more question regarding the opioid crisis. This crisis is striking our country hard, particularly southwestern Pennsylvania. Data from 2017 shows that it is more likely now that someone's going to die of a drug overdose than a car crash. My district has been hit really hard. In particular, Fayette County saw an 88% increase in overdose deaths from 2015 to 2017. What steps does the DOJ taken to address this shift? And do you think that a lot of the problems that we're seeing in these stats comes from a porous southern border?
To address your second question first, I do believe that most illegal opioids, like fentanyl, non-prescription illegal opioids, like fentanyl, heroin, and their derivatives are imported through our southern border. Some, not a majority, but some are also imported via direct mail, for example, and ordered off the dark net. I went through a list of things that the Department of Justice is doing to combat this opioid epidemic. I hope that this committee, while it's something I was prepared and wanted to talk about, and I appreciate the question, will look at other ways that we can put resources into the opioid crisis. 70,000 people, as you mentioned, have died of drug overdoses. A majority of those are from some form of opioids. And we also, quite frankly, and I mentioned my trip to China last August, we have to work together with the Chinese government to reduce the inflow of fentanyl. And we also have to, we have emergency scheduled right now, the fentanyl analogs, but we need an act of Congress, and I hope that we can get that to make that permanent, that these fentanyl derivatives and creative chemists that change the chemical makeup of fentanyl do not continue to try to evolve their drug to avoid our regulation.
Good point.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. I yield back my...
If this Jayapal is not one of the most disgusting fucking bitches that you would ever come across in your business, your children's world, your school, your synagogue, your church. Listen to what she says.
Ripped apart from their children. I went into a federal prison to talk to those women. Many of them have not even been able to say goodbye to their children.
Now, did you catch what she just said? She has more sympathy for these kids that are being used to come across the border to bring in their fucking illegal parents, cousins, uncles, aunts, child traffickers. And she says, they're being ripped from their parents. Now I'm going to behave myself. Bitch! Every day in America, almost 500,000 black and Latino babies are ripped from the fucking womb of an American citizen woman. And you're worried about some fucking people that aren't even supposed to be in this country, let alone come here with their child trafficking, their drugs, their bullshit, their fucking diseases? Bitch, please. Let's listen to a little more of this. Jay Paul. You know who she favors? Let's send $5 billion to Africa to help them with birth control. Well, you know what? If you can't cross your fucking legs, then maybe you shouldn't fuck, huh? What a concept.
They sat in the room next door as they heard their children yelling for them.
And these women are in the same room as they hear their babies crying. They were born, and now we have to decide whether we murder them or not. Are you daring to compare the fucking two?
Successfully prosecuted Iowa's first openly gay state legislator on trumped-up Hobbs Act charges that were dismissed by the jury in about an hour. Senate candidate. There have been some scandals, too. Here's one. Trump's acting attorney general involved in firm that scammed veterans out of life savings. Veteran says, I spent the money on a dream. I lost everything. But the newspapers say you struck gold when you arrived in Washington, which the president calls the swamp. Here's one that tells the story. Conservative nonprofit with obscure roots and undisclosed funders paid Matthew Whitaker $1.2 million. According to the Washington Post, in the 3 years after he arrived in Washington, Whitaker received more than $1.2 million as the leader of a charity that reported having no other employees. That's a pretty good deal. Now, what was the name of the charity that you ran, Mr. Whitaker?
Congressman, you've mentioned a lot in your...
no, but I'm asking you a very specific question. What was the name of the charity?
You have challenged my character.
No, I'm asking you a question. I control this time, Mr. Whitaker. If you want to ask the chairman for time of your own, you can do it. This is my time. Mr. Whitaker, you don't run this committee. You don't run the Congress of the United States.
Evidently, nobody else does either.
The gentleman will suspend. The gentleman is correct. The witness will answer the questions.
No, I won't.
The gentleman decide what questions. The gentleman will continue. We'll resume.
What was the title of the not-for-profit that you ran?
What time period, sir?
What was the last title? I know it changed its name 3 different times, right? What was the final name?
While I was employed as the executive director, it was called the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust.
Did you name it?
I did. Actually, you know,
those are highly noble goals, accountability and civic trust. So let's talk about some accountability and civic trust. Mr. Whitaker, I've got a question for you.
No, you asked me a question.
I asked you a question. I control the floor, Mr. Whitaker. You don't understand. Now,
the gentleman controls the time, and if he wishes, as many members have done on occasion, they make a statement. They don't even ask a question. But if he wishes to proceed to another question, it's his time.
But Congressman, I do not feel, I mean, Mr.
Chairman,
I do not feel like my answer would be complete on the record.
It's up to
the question he asked.
Okay, Mr. Whitaker, see if you can get into this. Tell us where the money came from that you were paid, the $1.2 million that you were paid before you went to the Department of Justice. I'm asking my question.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, which overrules your question. Point of order.
The gentleman will explain his point. The gentleman will suspend. The gentleman will state his point of order.
Look, we're going to go down this probably many more times, but again, if you want to do a confirmation hearing, this is not under the scope of this hearing. This is not a confirmation hearing. It is not shown to be a...
Mr. Chairman,
the gentleman's point of order is not well taken. The gentleman from Maryland has the discretion to ask the questions.
I just wouldn't answer them.
Appeal the ruling of the chair.
The gentleman has appealed the ruling of the chair. The gentlelady has moved the table. All in favor of the motion to table the appeal of the ruling of the chair will vote aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The ruling of the motion is tabled.
Mr. Chairman,
gentleman,
you and I engage in a
the
colloquy.
gentleman will.
Can we suspend the clock and you and I engage
No.
in a colloquy?
We're in the
We're
in the middle of the
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Is the ranking member just going to continue to interrupt when he doesn't like the flow of questions?
Excuse me.
I'll probably make a point of order when that needs to be made.
I
Right
hope-
now, we
Good
can
if
get
the
in
use
rules.
of it was actually a point of order.
Everyone will please suspend. The gentleman made a point of order. It was ruled out of order. Right now, the gentleman has the time. If the ranking member wants to make a point, I'll recognize him after the gentleman is completed. The gentleman will resume.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been reported publicly that there was one donor. And as we understand it, I think you're testifying today that you were the sole employee of the group. So there was one donor and one employee. Do you know who the donor was to the group that funded your salary for 1.3
We haven't received the report.
Yeah.
Has there been a draft opinion about keeping it from going to Congress?
You know, Congressman, I'm not going to talk about the kind of ongoing investigation that is the special counsel. I will share with you that
Mr. Whitaker, did Donald Trump ask you if you would recuse before you became acting attorney general? If that question came up, did he ask you what you would do?
Congressman, I've already answered that question in my opening statement.
Do you believe Attorney General Sessions should have recused?
As I mentioned in my answers previously, the recusal decision.
No, do you believe, yes or no, that he should have recused?
Not
I actually,
not
as I
my
sit here
choice.
today, I do not have an opinion. I believe he determined it was the right decision for him to make, so I agree that he made the right decision for him.
Yeah.
Have there been any discussions at the department about pardons for Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, Michael Flynn, or Michael Cohen?
Congressman, we have a very well-worn system
that the president doesn't follow, but have there been discussions about pardons for those individuals that you're aware of, yes or no?
Congressman, as I've been acting attorney general, I have not been involved in any discussions of any pardons, even and including the ones you're discussing.
You made a public statement last week that the investigation was nearly complete. Is that your characterization, or is that Bob Mueller's characterization?
Congressman, that position that I mentioned last week in a press conference was my position as acting attorney general.
Would Bob Mueller, if sitting before us right now, agree with you?
You know, Congressman, Bob Mueller is going to finish his investigation when he wants to finish his investigation.
Is Mr. Mueller honest?
Congressman, I have been on the record about my respect for Bob Mueller and his ability to conduct this investigation.
Do you believe he's honest, yes or no?
I have no reason to believe he's not honest, so yes, I do believe he's honest.
Do you believe he's conflicted, yes or no?
Congressman, as I mentioned regarding recusals, you know, sort of the conflict analysis is for the individual lawyer to make once a matter is before them. And I'm sure that whether it's Bob Mueller, whether it's Rod Rosenstein,
the president has called him conflicted. The president's called him conflicted, and you oversee the investigation. Do you believe that Mr. Mueller's conflicted?
Congressman, as acting attorney general, I have followed regular order at the Department of Justice, and I have expected that the lawyers and the support staff and agents that work for me follow regular order. And as I sit here today, I don't have any reason to believe that.
So you don't believe you believe he's honest, you don't believe he's conflicted. Can you say right now, Mr. President, Bob Mueller is honest and not conflicted?
Congressman, I'm not a puppet to repeat what you're saying.
Are you able to say it, or do you not believe it?
I have answered your question as to what I believe about the special counsel. I stand by my prior statement.
Can you say it to the president, though?
No, fuck you.
Congressman, I am not here to be a puppet to repeat terms and words that you say that I should say.
Can you say that to the president?
Regular order.
Fuck off, Salwell.
To the,
Mr. Chair,
to the gentleman from Rhode Island for the purpose of unanimous consent request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask unanimous consent that the following articles be placed in the record. The first is an article entitled Exclusive Trump Loyalist. Matthew Whitaker was counseling the White House on investigating Clinton. A second article, Sessions replacement. Matthew Whitaker called Mueller's appointment ridiculous and a little fishy. Third article, all the time, Robert Mueller's new boss railed against the Russia probe. Trump's pick to replace Jeff Sessions once said Mueller investigation risks becoming a witch hunt. And finally, an article entitled, Trump's new acting attorney general once mused about defending Robert Mueller.
Without objection, these documents will be placed in the record. I now recognize the gentleman for 5 minutes.
You know what the problem is with that, guys? Is those are newspaper articles. They're not actual documents. There is no way to collaborate them. There is no way to prove that they are either true or not true. And this is one of the problems with the Oversight Committee and the rule of entering evidence into these hearings. Fake news articles make their way into these boards and are put into evidence that distorts the reality of what happened, what actually happened. Because many of these articles are later on proven to be false and misleading.
Can't be indicted, correct?
Congressman, as is consistent with the practice of the Department of Justice, we investigate crimes and we prosecute individuals that commit crimes.
Just asking a simple question. I'll go on. There's no sentence in the U.S. Constitution that states the president's former campaign chairman can't be indicted, correct?
Same answer to my previous.
What a stupid question.
Does that sentence exist in the Constitution?
Of course it does not, Congressman.
That's
you
right.
know that, and I know that.
Right, because Paul Manafort was indicted. There is no sentence in the Constitution that says the president's children can't be indicted, correct?
Congressman, you can give me the whole list. I mean, sort of.
No, I'll give you 3 more.
Okay.
Yeah, right?
There is no sentence in the United States Constitution that says that the president's children cannot be indicted.
There's no sentence in the U.S. Constitution that says the vice president can't be indicted, correct?
That's correct.
Right. There's no sentence in the U.S. Constitution. This is my last one. There's no sentence in the U.S. Constitution that says the sitting president of the United States cannot be indicted, correct?
Congressman, because that is the opinion of the Office of
I don't actually care what DOJ policy is. I'm asking about the Constitution.
With the practices of the Department
Mr. Whitaker,
of Justice
it's just a yes or no question. Mr. Whitaker, I'm asking you a factual.
Both administrations.
After this hearing, you can spin the Constitution all you want. As you sit here today, you just have
you little
to
egg
answer
roll.
a factual yes or no question. I'm going to make it even easier for you. There's no sentence in the Constitution that says, quote, the sitting president of the United States cannot be indicted, unquote. Correct?
Correct.
Congressman, yes or no?
As I
have it for you right here.
The problem lies in the fact that there's a federal law and there's a Department of Justice protocol that a sitting president cannot be indicted. So, Mr. Lau, go pound an egg roll up your fucking Chinese ass, you little prick. You're such a troll online anyway. So all you do is troll. Why don't you try doing some work?
Is that right? So is that sentence in this Constitution? It's not, correct? I'm not trying to trick you. It's not a hard question.
I don't. Again,
it's a founding document of our federal government. Is that sentence in this Constitution?
Congressman, you and I both know that the way that the OLC opinion is written.
I'm asking about the Constitution, the founding
question as to why the president of the United States.
I'm just asking about the Constitution.
Sitting president of the United States can't be indicted.
I'm just going to, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to submit the U.S. Constitution for the record and say no, that sentence is not in there. Now we're going to move on. Earlier today, you had testified that you did not communicate to Donald Trump or senior White House advisors.
It's President Trump to you,
about the special
fuckhead.
counsel's investigation. So I'm going to ask you a related question. Did you communicate to Donald Trump or any senior White House advisors about investigations from the Southern District of New York concerning the Trump Organization, the Trump Inaugural Committee, Michael Cohen, or other investigations that relate to Trump entities or potentially the president?
That's a wide question.
Mentioned that I said other investigations in my opening statement. I really don't have anything further to add to that answer.
And when you said other investigations, you mean you communicated to the president about other investigations?
No, I didn't. That's not what I said in my opening statement. I'll refer you back to my opening statement. I was very clear.
Did you communicate to the president and any senior White House advisors about investigations from the Southern District of New York related to Trump entities?
Again, I was
asking the same question isn't going to get you a different answer, you little egg roll.
That not only about my communications regarding the special counsel's
egg roll the troll.
I said other investigations, and the Southern District of New York would be included in other investigations.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move to another subject. The president has talked about national emergency. Under the latest FBI data, it's correct, isn't it, that violent crime across the United States has gone down?
Yeah, we celebrate actually that violent crime
In
is
fact,
going on in the last 2 years.
property crime has gone down as well. Isn't that right?
Congressman, as I sit here right now, I believe generally all crime is down over the last 2 years.
Then my last question
They'd be shaking their heads. Like, what are you doing there? We need to work together to get things done. And so that's my statement, but I do have a question for Mr. Whitaker about DOJ oversight. Following the New York Governor Cuomo's support of abortion up to the moment of birth, and Governor Northam of Virginia's comments indicating support of an action which, in my opinion, relates to infanticide, are you concerned about some of these actions of late that implicate the Federal Partial Birth Abortion Act that criminalizes gruesome procedures? I mean, I'm getting really concerned that this is violating the law, and has DOJ looked into this?
Yes, as an American citizen, I am very concerned.
And can you also tell me, I read recently a Wall Street Journal opinion piece. It was from 2018, and in that it said in New York City, thousands of more black babies are aborted than born alive each year, and my grandkids are African American. And so, you know, if there was a crime occurring in this country that exceeded the number of deaths from cancer, heart disease, AIDS, accidents combined, which abortions do, is that something that the DOJ would get involved in and be concerned about and try to stop?
Congresswoman, every life is valuable. And while I can't wade into the political issue that you raise, the members of this committee have a lot of power as to how we value life and how we enforce the laws of the Department of Justice. And this is an issue that I know there is a lot of passion about, and I appreciate your passion, and it's something that we actually share together. And if you look at my statements previous to joining the Department of Justice, especially during the 2014 campaign for the United States Senate, I was very outspoken in this regard. But it's as I sit here as acting Attorney General, I think it would be inappropriate for me to comment more fulsomely on this issue, but we're going to enforce the laws that Congress passes, and we're going to hold those accountable that violate the law.
You know, I'm an American patriot, and I'm 55 years old, and I have worked hard all of my life to have the things that I have. I married a wonderful man that has taken good care of me all these years, and I take good care of him. But after witnessing what happened on the Oversight Judiciary Committee today, I have lost faith. If these people, Nadler, Maxine Waters, are on the chairmanship of committees that run this country, we are in a world of hurt. I just thank God they didn't get the Senate. And we can never, ever allow them in the White House again. I think you all know that. I think we all understand that. These people are so far left that they're looking at their asses 7 days a week. That's how far left they've gone. This is the end of my video on this. It's been a long one. And I've tried to show you some of the best parts of the Oversight Committee today, proving that this was nothing more than a continuation of how many ways can we defame the president, attack his family, make accusations that we can't back up, accuse the president of being corrupt, exactly what Obama and Hillary was. If you ever notice, that's exactly what they're doing. They're accusing Trump of doing exactly what they've been doing because they've lost power. See, they only have power in the House. And the Senate can kill anything that they try to come up with. So they're dead ducks. And from now till 2020, when the presidential elections happen again, we have two orders of business, people. One, lobby your guys in the Senate and in Congress to adopt voter ID laws. And I've said this, I cannot count the many times that I've said this. You can put a thumbprint on an absentee ballot or a mail-in ballot that can be cross-checked with your state identification. That alone would cut voter fraud in half. I'm damn sure of it. On voter IDs, Wyoming just smacked down ours, but first time voting, you have to show ID. We've got a few Democrats out here, not very many. They're a dying breed in Wyoming, and that's a good thing because we have no use for them anyway. All they want to do is spend my money and steal my wealth and my property and give it to people who want to sit on their ass and smoke dope and fuck all day long. So anyway, with that, that was some of the highlights of it. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'll tell you what, I was hopping mad. And you can tell by my narration through some of this and some of the video and some of the audio that I'm going to put in this. And this is going to be a long one. I'm going to do an hour and a half on this because it flat pissed me off to know that we have the most corrupt fuckers in charge of our committees. Nadler, Maxine Waters, you know, Gillibrand even canceled her little appearance for some outfit today because you know what we're going to ask? We're going to ask why are you for murdering babies when they're born? That's murder. When a guy goes to prison for murder ×2, kills a pregnant woman with a baby in her belly, murder ×2. But a mother can get pissed off at her boyfriend on the last minute of the last day of the last second and murder her baby and it's not murder? The fuck is wrong with you people?
Is expired. I'm going to ask one question to follow up on the gentlelady's. Sir, since it is, black letter law that someone in the United States may apply for asylum, that any person who applies for asylum and states a reason, therefore, is entitled to have that claim adjudicated, that person is entitled to legal assistance as that claim is adjudicated. Doesn't it strike you that a policy that says that people who set foot on American soil and claim asylum will be sent to a foreign country where they may not have access to legal help, which they are constitutionally guaranteed for their asylum adjudication, may have a constitutional problem?
Congressman, I'm sure you're aware that federal law allows asylum seekers to be returned to a safe third country.
I'm not aware, though, that it allows people not that allows the government to do something that effectively eliminates their right to counsel for their asylum claim. This concludes today's hearing. I want to thank all the members who are still here for their patience and their fortitude. I want to thank Attorney General Whitaker for appearing today.
And now I'm going to attack him like a fucking dog and call him a liar and a crook.
Ms. Jackson-Lee.
I thank you. I'm not asking, I'm putting these questions on the record.
Excuse me, submit them for the record.
Yeah, I will submit them for a record regarding...
Without objection, the questions are admitted.
And the three articles for the record, GQ, Washington Post, New York Times, and also an article by Shane Croucher.
Without objection, the articles are admitted. Before we adjourn, I want to note for the record that, Mr. Whitaker, that you owe us responses on a number of issues raised here today, responses that we intend to secure, including but not limited to the times and dates you were briefed on the special counsel's investigation, your communications with the president after you received those briefings, the basis for your statement that the special counsel's investigation is reaching its conclusion, and whether you told the special counsel not to take any specific investigative or prosecutorial steps. I would also note that your testimony was at best inconsistent on the topic of your communications with the White House prior to your tenure at the department. It is not credible that you both interviewed for a job handling the president's response to the special counsel's investigation and never conveyed your opinions about that investigation to the White House. We require answers to these questions. I ask the department to work with the committee to provide them. As part of that work, I fully intend to call you back for an interview under subpoena if necessary, and I expect more fulsome answers at that time. Without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written questions for the witness or additional materials for the record. And with the thanks of the chairman, the hearing is adjourned.
Well, fuck you too, Naylor.